With the second round of Democratic debates in the history books, and the next round being much harder to qualify for, it's only natural that some 2020 campaigns will come to an end between now and the September debates. Hello there everybody, it is a beautiful day here in America. Welcome back to the campaign trail. My name is Jared, and today we're going to take out which candidates should reasonably drop out and who should stay in the race between now and the next round of debates. As I've mentioned before in other videos, my opinion on large primaries is very different from others. Many people don't like large primaries because they're hard to keep up with, and for the parties, the logistics behind them are enough to make anybody's head spin. Naturally, with this being the case, you tend to hear lots of, "Why is that guy running? He should just drop out," or "She has no chance, just drop out so we can get to a smaller field already." Again, I disagree with this mentality. As long as the candidates themselves see a path to the nomination and have a platform to introduce themselves to more voters, I say let them stay, especially if the voting hasn't even started yet. Another thing that I do want to mention is that you're not going to see candidates here who've already qualified for the next round of debates, as those candidates clearly have another way to boost their campaign going forward. I will be focused on major candidates who have not yet qualified. With all that being said, let's get started with our first candidate, Michael Bennet. Bennet didn't have a bad debate performance in either debate he was in, but he lacked a standout moment. In the second debate, he did really well, but he also came across as Biden's sidekick and didn't really set up an identity for himself. Given where he usually stands in polling and where his fundraising is, as well as a lack of strong debate performance, I can't see his campaign catching any momentum that would allow him to qualify for the next debates and therefore continue to give his campaign a platform. Verdict: dropout. Up next we have Steve Bullock, the newest member of the debate stage and one of the surprise standouts of the second round of debates. Bullock had a strong debate performance, taking on both Sanders and Warren in their progressive plans. In a way, he almost led the moderate charge against them. Bullock's been down in the polling and his fundraising doesn't seem to be doing well. However, it's highly likely that's mostly due to a lack of name ID. Coming off a strong debate performance, Bullock might catch some fire here. He should see where this goes. Verdict: stay. Next we have Julian Castro. Castro had a better debate performance the first time around, but it seems that's all he really needed. His fundraising increased massively after that first debate, which means he's already met the fundraising requirements for the September debates. He also has 3 out of the 4 needed polls to qualify for the polling requirements. It's very easy to see Castro getting at least one more poll with him at least 2%. As long as he doesn't get beat out by other candidates, Castro is in pretty good position to make the next round. Verdict: stay. Now we have Bill de Blasio. De Blasio lacked a strong performance in either debate, and his second one was especially weak. His polling and fundraising are low, and his constituents in New York are getting fed up with him running for president and not gaining any traction. Meanwhile, New York City continues to have loads of problems. All signs are pointing to de Blasio having no future in this primary. Verdict: dropout. Up next is John Delaney. Delaney is one people expected to be one of the first to drop out after these last series of debates. That was before he had a great night where he and several other moderates were able to go toe-to-toe with Warren and Sanders. Delaney especially had well-crafted critiques and in many ways was the brains of the moderate team-up. Delaney is in a very similar position to Bullock, low fundraising and polling, but coming off a very strong debate performance. In the same way, no need to go until it's clear that there's no boost from the last debates. Verdict: stay. Now let's move on to Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard was a standout of the second night of the second debates, especially her takedown of Kamala Harris. Gabbard once again was the most Googled candidate after the debate. This shows there's a definite interest in her campaign. She has just reached the fundraising qualification for the September debates. Actually, she blew past it due to her debate performance, and she is already registered at 2% in one poll, but it is definitely possible for her to get more. Coming off her best moment of the campaign and already meeting some of the requirements for the next debate, I see no reason why Tulsi should drop out. Verdict: stay. Then we have Kirsten Gillibrand. 2 lackluster debate performances, including the last one where Joe Biden exposed how disingenuous one of her attacks was, means that Gillibrand can't seem to gain any kind of momentum. Combine this with her poor fundraising and polling, and it doesn't seem there's any way forward for her. Verdict, dropout. Next is John Hickenlooper. Hickenlooper has already flirted with dropping out once before, as many of his campaign staffs quit once they realized he had no momentum coming out of the first round of debates. Hickenlooper pressed on with a new staff, now with another poor performance where he seemed to be an afterthought in the moderate alliance against Warren and Sanders. He has to be thinking about the same thing again. He does have one poll above 2%, but his fundraising is abysmal, and frankly, I don't see him doing anything that helps him out here. Verdict, dropout. Now we move on to Jay Inslee. Inslee tried to land a punch that would separate himself from the pack in the last debate, but most of his punches ended up missing. Much like many other people here, he's struggling to gain momentum out of these debates. His fundraising looks good, but he's yet to register above 1% in any poll, and nowadays, 1% is a high polling number for him. Inslee may be able to pull it off, but as far as I can tell, I can't see it. Verdict, dropout. Now we get to the first candidate who didn't qualify for either of the debates in June or July, and that is Wayne Messam. The logic here is simple. He didn't meet either of the basic and low qualifications for either of the first two debates, which shows he has no momentum and no following. On top of that, he's not doing anything to make news. It's amazing he hasn't dropped out already. Verdict, dropout. Next is Seth Moulton, and a lot of what I just said applies here as well. Same deal, should have dropped out already. Verdict, dropout. Next is Tim Ryan. Ryan had himself a much better debate performance than he did the first time. He took on Bernie Sanders specifically, and he did well there. However, by most standards, he was a moderate with the third best performance that night. If support among moderates shift, is going to go to Delaney and Bullock, who just had better nights. It's one of those cases where good was simply not good enough, and thus all his momentum he otherwise could have gotten was taken from him. And then there's his very rough fundraising numbers. Verdict, dropout. Next up is Joe Sestak. Once again, same deal as Messam and Moulton. Didn't make those first two debates? No way to move forward. Bye. Verdict, dropout. Now the next guy is my one exception to my logic about those who didn't make the last set of debates. Tom Steyer can set himself to make the next set of debates. He's already gotten 2 out of the 4 polls that have him above 2%, and the guy's a billionaire, so whatever lack of name recognition he has can be solved with many well-placed advertisements. He's got an uphill climb, but it's definitely possible. Verdict, stay. Next is Marianne Williamson. Williamson is in a very similar position to Jay Inslee, in that her polling is low, but her fundraising is on its way to meeting the qualifications. However, where she differs from Inslee is that she has just come off a strong debate performance that seems to resonate with people, especially the crowd at the debate. She was also the most Googled candidate of the first night of these last set of debates. She's got momentum, and she doesn't need much to get to the next round. Verdict, stay. Last but not least, we have Andrew Yang. Yang is in a very similar position as Julian Castro. He's met the fundraising requirement for the next debate, and he has 3 out of the necessary 4 polls for the polling qualification. Heck, he'd already have gotten the 4th if it weren't for some technicalities in the DNC's rules. Throw in that he's coming off a strong debate performance, I'd be shocked if Yang didn't make it to the next round of debates. Verdict, stay. And there you have it. My opinion on which candidates should keep on trucking and fighting, and which candidates should say farewell to their presidential dreams. If all the candidates I suggested drop out do end up dropping out, that would bring us down to a more reasonable field of 15. Reasonable is in air quotes there, by the way. I did want to mention one last thing. Just because I recommended somebody stay doesn't mean I think that they will make the next round of debates. I'm just saying there's a possibility. It's also my opinion that any of these candidates who don't make the next round of debates should drop out unless they have a clear way to meet the qualifications for the next debate. With all that being said, what do you guys think? Which candidates do you think should drop out now that we've gone through 2 debates? Are there any candidates who I said should drop out that you think should stay in? Are there any candidates who have qualified for the next round of debates who should drop out? If so, why? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. Remember, if you like what you see and hear, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you know anybody who's also interested in these topics, send them on over here. We're always welcoming people of all ideological backgrounds. With all that being said, my name is Jared, and I'll see you guys next time on the campaign trail.